So we're really hoping.
How? Why? Like, what? How do you explain that? Like, if you go to someone and you say you just exported your hazardous waste, what do they say to you?
I actually debated a guy from the Department of Commerce once, and he said, we're helping third world countries by sending them their our hazardous waste because they're going to have their own someday, so they can practice how to handle it with ours.
Did he really say that?
Yeah, he really said that. Usually these days, just the outright dumping, the lying about what it is and dumping it is pretty unpopular, politically unpopular these days. So usually they say it's recycling. And in some cases it actually is recycling, but just because it's recycling doesn't mean it's green. The main waste that we are now sending overseas now is e-waste, electronic waste, which is our cell phones and computers and all that stuff that we buy and chuck as fast as we possibly can.
That has coltan in it.
And it has lead and cadmium and mercury and all kinds of toxic chemicals. The e-waste is the fastest growing part of our waste stream and the most hazardous. But each cell phone, each computer, all these things has little bits of gold, little bits of copper. Each cell phone has about 50 cents worth of gold. There's some valuable stuff there, but it's a pain to recycle it here because it wasn't designed to be recycled, and it's got toxic stuff. So we send that to other third world countries, to Africa, to Asia, where people with really primitive facilities just smash the stuff open, pull out the little bits of hazardous stuff, and just burn or dump the rest. So the e-waste recycling is still going on overseas. A lot of other international waste trade has slowed down significantly.
We have been, and we're still going to get to how the story of stuff got, but I'm curious, as you say this, we have just been a society of planned obsolescence. I remember actually when I was in 8th grade, I did a project on planned obsolescence. So I realized, and then I don't even think it, I mean, I described it, but I don't think I thought it was bad. I just described how, you buy a car every 3 years, you think you have to trade it in. Like, it works, it doesn't work, you have to trade it in after 3 years. And I'm old enough that that was the norm when I was a kid, that if you traded in, even if it was a clunker for another clunker. But I mean, when you observe us as a society, if you would say that at one point we were 100% a planned obsolescence society, where we engineered obsolescence either into the item or into our way of dealing with it. How far would you say we've come toward being a society which sees things on a sustainable, recyclable, control variance at the point of origin kind of society? How far, honestly, as someone who has just studied and observed this, how far have we North Americans come, would you say? If your view of fantastic is here and we started zero, are we 5%, 10%, 90%?
I think we're, in terms of planned obsolescence of the disposability of stuff, I think we're worse than when we were growing up. I mean, I remember growing up, my mom had the same toaster, the same refrigerator, the same telephone forever. I recently had to get a new refrigerator, which was like traumatic for me because it's this huge mass moving in and out of my house. And I'm hoping that this will see at least my daughter into college, who's 10 now. And I asked the refrigerator guy, because I was just so shocked about buying this humongous thing. I said, when am I going to have to do this again? Like, how long is this going to last? And the guy who was installing it, he said, they used to last 25 years, 30. And he looked at me and he said, now you're going to be lucky if you get 5 out of it. I said, are you kidding? 5? And I said, why is that?
What would go wrong with it?
Oh my God, everything went wrong. The ice thingy didn't work. Everything went wrong immediately. It's it totally doesn't work already, and it's only a year old. Because there's all these gadgets and extra stuff now. The door doesn't shut right. It's always beeping. It's I liked my old one so much better.
It tells you water's coming, but you can't close the door.
The water thing doesn't work.
Anyway, So we've actually gone backwards.
I think we've gone backwards. Definitely the replacement cycle, that's what the technical term is for how long we keep something before we chuck it and get a new one. The replacement cycle of most stuff is shrinking. And it's made easier with the globalization of supply chains so that the replacement object is cheaper than repairing it. I had a VCR that was broken, and I took it into a repair shop to ask, can I get it fixed? They said it'll cost $50 just to look at it. Not even to tell me if it can get fixed.
$45
costs
to buy a new one.
$39 for a new one that had a DVD player. So the externalized costs that keep the prices low, the fact that replacing it is cheaper than repairing it, repair shops are disappearing. I think we basically hit bottom and we're just starting to turn around. I think that increasingly the the limits of the ecological system to provide resources and assimilate our waste are becoming more and more apparent. 10, 20, 30 years ago, we had to appeal to people's theoretical concern for the planet for them to care about these things. But now the limits, we are bumping up against the limits everywhere. It's just harder and harder to ignore that there's some fundamental problems with this work, watch, spend treadmill that we're on.
Right, and to the extent that we have a distance to go to break this habit of we need the newest, latest, greatest gadget, or to have people build things built to last. I mean, the idea of buy less, buy better, buy forever, etc. What about our whole, as a society, our appreciation for just not demanding so much? Do you see any movement? Are we changing at all? Are we starting to move back from this kind of huge need, or do you see consumerism just where it always was?
I am actually enormously hopeful right now. In a way, releasing the Story of Stuff film, I feel like it was taking the temperature of the public. We released this film. We thought maybe 50,000 people would watch it. I remember we were thinking that would be a real goal. 50,000 people watched it in 4 hours. We're now, when I told you it was 8 million, it's up to 10 million.
10 million.
We're at 10 million online views. We have gotten tens of thousands of emails. I think it's like 120,000 so far. Emails from people all over the world who say, yes, I knew that, I just didn't know how to say it. Or I knew a piece of it. Or I feel like the Story of Stuff message tapped into this growing sense of dis-ease that we were told, and we are continuously told from advertisements bombarding us all day, that if we have more stuff, we will be happier, more successful, more loved, more valuable, cooler,
hipper.
And I think we tried that. We did that. We did that. And we found out that we are exhausted and stressed, and our houses are cluttered and full of stuff, and we are burdened, and we used to own our stuff, but now it owns us.
Right.
We are spending so much time taking care of and maintaining and upgrading and replacing and untangling the cords for and putting back on the shelf and all this for our stuff, and we're spending less time on family vacations, with leisure activity, coming together with others around a shared goal. It's so crazy that we're actually investing more time in things that are trashing the planet and exposing us to toxic chemicals, and less time with the things that actually provide happiness, which are the quality of our social relationships, a sense of meaning beyond oneself, coming together with others towards a shared goal. That's where real happiness comes from. But we're ignoring and neglecting that on this quest for ever more stuff, and people are increasingly realizing it's not fun.
I don't need that much
It's just
stuff.
not fun.
I don't need that much stuff.
Yeah.
You also make the point, both on the video and in the book, about the fact that I'm talking about we, North Americans or Western world, we use way above our share of the world's natural resources. Like, it's not enough that we use ours, but we go elsewhere and we clear cut theirs, and we take their oil and their water and their... And do you see any progress? I mean, do we measure how much we use of other people's resources, or not only others, but how much do we, of the world's total, how much do we use relative to our population? Do we measure?
Yeah, so in the U.S., I'm not sure what the Canadian data is, but in the U.S. we have 5% of the world's population and use 30% of the world's resources. Okay. And what you've just brought up is enormously important, because there's not enough resources on the planet for everybody to live the way we do. So if right now, globally, we're using 1.5 planets worth of resources each year. I was recently in a conversation where they started debating it's 1.3, it's 1.6, and I was like, anything over 1 is a problem. We have one planet. So globally, we're using 1.5 planets, but if everyone lived like we did in the US and Canada, we would need 5 planets. So continuing to be on this track is basically saying we're going to have a kind of resource apartheid, where we get to consume like this, and huge numbers of people, millions of people, just don't. And so I'm assuming that for all of us, that's not ethically okay. So that means we have to power down to make room at the table for others. The best metric, to get back to your question, that I find is the Global Footprint Network. The Global Footprint Network is great. If you Google them, you can go to their website and you can answer all these questions about your life, and you can find out how much land you need, what your footprint is for you as an individual, and also you as a society. It's really interesting to look at how countries are doing relative to each other.